Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join this training session today, talking about credit profile numbers, or CPNs, how they can be stolen and rebranded and basically packaged as a real social security number. So it's something that is very important to be aware of. It is happening a lot, and so we did want to take the opportunity today to tell you more about it and help you understand exactly what these credit profile numbers are and what they mean for you. And presenting today myself, I'm Catherine Brown. I'm with the Fraud Experts, and this is a company that I founded in 2014 because I'm very passionate about fighting fraud. And then we also have Chuck Salvia. He's COO from ID Validation, which is a CID company. And CID is a company that I worked with for several years. They are fantastic about understanding fraud, and so it's great to be able to partner with them and provide this session. The Fraud Experts is headquartered in Arlington, Texas, and we do provide a variety of comprehensive fraud awareness, mitigation, consulting and training services. And we have advisors that include a variety of experts in the industry, from a variety of law enforcement, from other, finance company experts, and even training specialists. And all of the services that we provide are tailored to the specific needs of the clients we serve. ID Validation from CID, it's definitely a wonderful product. And after working with them and seeing their fraud expertise for nearly a decade, and seeing this product, it's very something that can really help. And so, Chuck, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you to talk more about ID Validation.
Thank you, Catherine. We're excited to be partnering today with you on this webcast, a nationwide webcast, and we're excited that all the attendees have joined us today. Yes, we're founded in 2001, based out of Arcadia, California. We offer fraud remediation, asset recovery management, and skip tracing services. We also have a division called ID Validation. It's a suite of governmental verification solutions, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. We are authorized agents for the SSA and the IRS, and we're also working with the Department of Homeland Security and USCIS. And as a footnote, we were the first company to build a direct interface to the SSA master file and death index, and you'll see in a few minutes how that's important to your operations. So if you're unfamiliar with CPN, you're about to learn what ID thieves do not want you to know. In this session, we're going to learn what is a CPN or SCN, how is it used, is it legal to use a CPN to obtain credit, how to easily protect vital business interests. That'll take all of about 30 minutes, and then we'll have some question and answer. But first, we want to start with question number 1. So we're going to do a polling question, and it's going to be on the right-hand side of your screen. So question number 1 coming up is, has your organization been impacted by people you... So if you would, just take a moment on the right-hand side. You should be able to click the yes, no, or I'm not sure buttons. I'll just give about 5 more seconds, and then we'll close the poll. And sure enough, the vast majority have been impacted by fraudulent identities. Question number 2 is, how familiar are you with CPN and SCN? Have you heard of that? Is that a new term for you? Are you very familiar, somewhat familiar, never heard of it, unfamiliar? And I'll just give you about 6 more seconds there on the right-hand side. And here's how the results have come in. It says 17% are very familiar, 21% somewhat familiar, 17% I've heard of it, but 46% of the attendees on this call are unfamiliar with CPN and SCN. And that's great. I really love presenting this information because so many people across the country have never heard of CPN? Well, a CPN is an acronym for credit profile number, credit privacy number, or credit protection number. Now, a relatively new acronym is SCN, which stands for secondary credit number. And I think, Catherine, you would agree that credit thieves are trying to stay one step ahead of the good guys because they keep changing the names and adding new acronyms. Do you agree? Have you found that to be true, Catherine?
I have definitely found that to be true. It's almost like a marathon to keep up with.
So these are 9-digit numbers used in place of a Social Security number. Well, what do thieves do with stolen items? Well, we know that they rebrand and they sell them. So what do thieves do with stolen SSNs? Of course, they rebrand and sell those as well. So there's your CPN and your SCNs, rebranded SSNs. So how do they use these CPNs? First of all, there's a lot of confusion concerning CPN. Some people say that you can pick a 9-digit number to use in place of your SSN when applying for credit. And they base that on a law, a federal law from 1974, and we'll talk about that. But are they correct? I use a quote from Catherine herself that says, it's misleading. People should absolutely not randomly pick a number. You can't just create your own ID number. So is this a good thing or a bad thing? We believe it's a bad thing. We say that CPN equals bad thing. In fact, contrary to what you're about to view, misuse of an ID number is a criminal offense. And again, the fraudsters would like to tell the unwary individuals out there that it's not an offense. It's not breaking the law. But of course, they're criminals, so they're lying. So here is the Privacy Act of 1974. In fact, this is from the Social Security Administration website. And it says that you can refuse to disclose your Social Security number. Well, I would say you can certainly do that. That's true. But, Catherine, wouldn't you agree that even if you refuse to give your Social Security number, it's out there, right? I mean, it's in the bureaus and it's in trusted authorities. Your Social Security number is in the system. Isn't that true?
Yes, that is true. Many people have filled out applications. They have rental histories. It's available in a number of places.
Okay, so let's remember this law from December 31st, 1974. This is called the, well, I think it's called Title V, Section 7. So remember that, Title V, Section 7. Because now we're going to see some blatant fraud as they misuse that information. This is ShapeMyCredit.com. And by the way, they'll sell you a CPN starting as low as $299. So they say that their CPN and SCN numbers are legal. We question that. They base it on the 1974 Privacy Act, saying that you can keep your SSN private and not be denied service due to your refusal. Well, this is misinformation to the unwary. Now, they also reference the FBI, and we're going to get to the FBI website in a moment. I just wanted to show you their pricing chart. There's that $299. They'd like you to wholesale them on their behalf. Then there's other packages, of course, all the way up to $1,849. They talk about trade lines. You're going to hear Catherine and I talking about trade lines. There's LexisNexis. Of course, they misspelled it. Not sure why they did that. Maybe that was intentional. And then tri-merged. So, Catherine, if you would just take a moment and tell us about what is a trade line, and how is LexisNexis involved here at all, or implicated, and what does tri-merged mean?
Essentially, what a trade line is in everybody's credit report, each different entity that reports something on your credit report is reporting what's called a trade line. It gives information about who the creditor is and what the terms are of the loan that was, or line of credit that was provided. And so what this is essentially saying is that, okay, you can get the, budget rate of $299 for, you get the CPN number and it has no trade lines. Then when you, starter package, but whenever you get up to the bronze and it says that you get a trade line, what that means is that they're going to give you a CPN number that already has an established credit trade line showing a good payment history tied to that CPN credit profile number. And essentially how they do that is they use what's commonly referred to as pollinator or seed accounts, where they pay people that have these trade lines of these good, good credit histories to add that CPN number and, whatever name, address that is necessary for that CPN number as an authorized user to that excellent, already established trade line. And so what that does is immediately creates a credit profile under that CPN number, under whatever name, whatever address, and it has a good credit history, and it will pass LexisNexis. It's on all of the credit bureaus, and so it's like an instant credit file showing a good history that these people can use to go out and get credit.
And does Tri-Merge refer to the main three, the big three credit bureaus? Is that what they mean?
Yes, so it's going to be showing up on all of the credit bureaus.
Very good. Thank you, Catherine. Oh, by the way, this is a screenshot of Shape My Credit's corporate office in the kitchen of their apartment in Campbell, California. I found that quite amusing. The correct analysis was actually written in a blog by Mark Bennett in June of 2009 when he said that CPNs are to repair or obtain credit. That's what these folks want to tell you. And there's that Section 5 again, the rationale that they try to reference, going back to that federal law, Title 5, Section 7. But again, he states correctly that you don't have to give your SSN to a company offering you credit, but of course, they don't have to give the credit to you either, right? He goes on to say that companies don't ask for CPNs, they ask for your SSN. So lying to get credit is a crime. Someone wrote one article saying you could just write CPN ID number instead of your SSN. Well, Catherine, let me ask you, what would you do if your applicant wrote CPN ID number where they were supposed to write their SSN?
Well, not only would they be declined, that would raise a huge red flag. Like, what exactly are they trying to do? So it wouldn't end well for them. They wouldn't be getting the credit that they were requesting by doing that.
And then they mentioned the FBI. So here is the website that they were referring to. This actually goes back to a 2008 mortgage fraud report on the FBI.gov website. And if you're interested, you could just Google FBI mortgage 2008, and this page will come up. They go on to say in this article that regarding credit enhancement schemes, that CPNs and seasoned trade line accounts create fraudulent retailer financial relationships, mortgage fraud activity, and illicit credit. So credit enhancement schemes equals unlawful activity. They further say in the website that CPNs offered for a fee are most likely scammers. And of course, the scammers don't tell you that, but the FBI would. So they conveniently leave that information out.
Of course, and that might impact their cash flow check.
Just a little bit, you think? And then, as you mentioned about seasoned trade lines, again, these are fraudulent business trade lines sometimes, or like you say, these pollinator seed accounts. These are lines of credit held open for an extended period of time. So we all have C's in trade lines, right, Catherine? I mean, if you have a Sears card or a Home Depot credit card, those are trade lines, correct?
That's correct. So many of us do have, we have credit on our credit report, and our credit scores might be a bit different, just depending on, what has happened. But what's really important to remember about this is that the people that aren't necessarily fraud perpetrators in general, the people that just go out and go to, say, a credit repair company and they end up with this CPN and they apply with that CPN number, that credit profile number, with those trade lines, the lender or servicer is not seeing a true credit history. So you could have someone coming in that really their way of paying is they've got several vehicle repossessions. They've got maybe their mortgage has been foreclosed on. They've got a bunch of credit card charge-offs, and that's how they really pay their credit. And then they get this CPN through a credit repair facility, and all of a sudden they're going and applying, and it looks like they've got 800 plus credit score, and they pay all their bills on time when they've never even been involved in those trade lines other than to have them added to this number that doesn't even belong to them and wasn't given to them by the Social Security Administration. And so it creates a big problem. It's like a false sense of security for the lenders that see these CPNs, and they see these great credit scores, and they see these fees and trade lines that are showing up on the bureau. It passes LexisNexis, and it's all a front. It's all a fraud, and none of it is true.
And we're seeing the trend, obviously, as a growing trend, and of course, this is a national security issue as well.
Definitely.
So how to easily protect vital business interests. So here's question number 3. I'm going to open that up on the right-hand side, and question number 3 coming right now. Are you familiar with CBSV from the Social Security Administration? Yes, no? I've heard about it, and I'll give you about 5 more seconds. Are you familiar with CBSV from the SSA? 33% say yes, 52% say no, and about 13% have heard of it. So let's talk about this. The question is that really your applicant? So now we're going to learn about the industries. Well, sometimes it's the best kept secret, but it's also the industry's leading ID validation service, because unfortunately the Social Security Administration does not advertise nor promote this excellent service, which significantly reduces fraud and ID theft by matching name, SSN, date of birth, and checks the death index, the death indicator, right to the master file of the federal government. It was developed and administered by the SSA, and it began in 2002. It's very robust because it matches full name, SSN, date of birth, and the death indicator, as I mentioned. It is to strengthen, enhance, and purify your verification due diligence processes. The results come back either a match, no match, or deceased. So if all of the identifiers match, you get the successful result. If one or more fail, you get the no match. And of course, deceased is obvious. So the result is superlative personal identifier matching of each applicant that you have. And here's the beauty of CBSV. It can be used for any purpose. Because it is consent-based, it is used for, well, I can say it this way. For all of the attendees on this call, there are purposes for you to use CBSV. So it's as diverse as the types of companies listening in today, from HR solutions, background and employment screening, to new accounts and new applicants, forensic accounting and claims adjusting, fraud investigations, on and on. Wherever you have a need to check a person's name and SSN to their date of birth, you can use CBSV. And by the way, it is a premier compliance tool which exceeds regulatory requirements. So the bottom line, it's used for any all verification purposes with the signed consent of the applicant. So here's the value proposition. Identify fraudulent and missing application data. Consent-based SSN verification mitigates fraud and ID theft, which will identify unauthorized applicants and minimize your losses. Now you can have direct access to the official SSA record resource database, giving you the most accurate and superlative data available to protect vital business interests. So we always say, Catherine, CBSV should be processed first, every time, all the time. Because why do the work to vet an applicant only to find that they have a fake ID? So because CBSV is so powerful a tool, we say CBSV first, every time, all the time. Because we know that companies across the U.S. are vulnerable. Because there's websites showing you, well, here's one that will guarantee you they'll get you a bank account, or change your name, or get you a new SSN, new identity, fake ID. In fact, it's so easy, they're doing it on YouTube. They'll teach you, right now there's about 9,000 different YouTube videos showing you how to create a new credit profile. And by the way, they use a CPN to do it. Surprise, surprise. And you've probably seen the headlines. ID theft targets kids' SSNs, could threaten credit system. Thieves are targeting kids' SSNs and selling those numbers. Well, how do thieves do that? Unfortunately, it's way too simple. Because SSNs are everywhere. As you know, they're in all sorts of databases, right? From financial to utility, retail, education, government, electronic devices. Hopefully no one on this call has their Social Security card on their person, because if you lost your wallet, they would have not only your SSN, but your driver's license, which includes your date of birth and your full name. So please do not have your SSN card on your person. You've heard of dumpster diving. Well, there you go. SSN's in the mail and in the trash can. So this puts companies at risk because it's very simple for thieves to ascertain SSN validity. There are websites that gather this information. Here's one of them. It's called SSN Validator. They are not affiliated with the U.S. government. So the other day we picked 9 digits at random. We hit the search button, and presto, you just found a valid SSN. There's that number. Did it a few days ago. That Social Security number was issued in the state of Louisiana in 1965. Now, you'll notice that they're a little behind. They have not updated their death master file, which means they haven't paid for getting the new information, because that is, they are able to get that and update the file. They have not done it in over a year. But probably this person born in 1965 is still alive. Now I can take that valid SSN, combine it with my personal identifiers, and I just created a fraudulent identity. And I could scam any company out of anything. It's called synthetic identity theft, and it took me less than a minute to do it. So ID thieves have found the way in. And nobody knows that they're in the room. So this is information that you're learning that needs to be trumpeted. People need to know how easy it is and a simple way to stop them in their tracks. So what is synthetic identity theft? It's blending of personally identifiable information. So as Catherine said, it's name, date of birth, and address combined with a fake SSN, a CPN. It creates a synthetic identity, a credit sub-profile hidden from the main file of the actual person. And then it's shared by all the trusted authorities in the credit bureaus. Unfortunately, it's allowed to happen due to their flawed systems. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, thieves prefer a child's SSN to develop a synthetic identity of an adult so they can use it for many years, because most parents don't check the credit report of their 3-year-old. So if a thief gets that SSN of a youngster, they have many years use of that SSN until the child needs to use it for maybe a job in their teen years or maybe college. So companies are vulnerable to this fraud, which is called SIT, synthetic identity theft. And SIT accounts for 90% of ID theft incidents. So whereas you have your normal pattern, your SSN, your phone number, address, and date of birth, there's that blended suspicious pattern, a little bit them and a little bit you. And of course, now this causes problems because there's victims, right? Catherine, you've seen that. I'm sure you've dealt with that. How does this impact people, Catherine?
Well, this impacts people, and I mean, it can definitely be inconvenient, and it can lead to, a loss of money, of time. There's a lot of people that aren't familiar with exactly how to approach the situation once they've been victimized by identity theft. But there's a lot of information out there that's available to individuals who have been victims of identity theft or statutes that protect them so that they don't end up being held financially responsible for any trade line that's been obtained under their name. And so they're able to, they're inconvenienced, but ultimately many of them are not held responsible for these trade lines, and that's a good thing. We don't want victims to be held responsible, because fraudsters use their information and purchase things. And so there is that level of protection. However, when it comes to the true victims, the true, those that are experiencing, the loss of funds, that are losing money on this, that's the businesses that these fraud perpetrators decide to do business with, because they're left with a debt, that they're owed that they cannot collect on. Just something to think about.
So these businesses, they typically write this off, right? Like as the cost of doing business, is that right?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that approach identity theft and other situations like this as part of their calculations. That's commonly referred to as the cost of doing business. And, the unfortunate thing with doing that and not taking action is this allows these identity thieves to get away with what they're doing. And so, if no action is taken, if law enforcement is not aware of it, and it does not become involved, if the business doesn't do anything to pursue and try and recover from these losses, then you have these criminals that are just making a living off of this, and it's considered to be like paper. Essentially, it's like paper fraud, using a pen. Like, for example, they could end up going and getting a $50,000 car or more, just as an example, and they aren't held responsible for it. So it's allowing this environment where identity theft with these synthetic IDs is becoming more and more common, and we're still in a cycle where unfortunately there's not a lot being done about it. They just kind of get away with it. The business takes the loss. It's the cost of doing business, and that's that.
Well, and you're right, because in 2012 we went on Craigslist and found that there were over 500 ads for stolen SSNs from Miami to Texas to Georgia, $25 for a stolen SSN, CPN, and directions for creating a new credit file. What a deal. Ohio. But guess what, Catherine? 3 years later, we ran the same search on Craigslist. There are over 10,000 ads now. That's a 1,800% increase in CPN ads in 3 years. I like to say that this first one says change your life. It's really change your identity. All sorts of things. There's trade lines again. So of course you can get a loan once you buy their CPN with trade lines, get a $20,000 to $60,000 loan. Tri-merged, of course. So these are valid SSNs. So these are nice criminals. They're going to sell you a valid SSN, Catherine. They're not going to sell you a deceased or a number that's not valid.
And notice that many of those said start fresh, or enjoy new financial opportunities with a new credit profile or whatever. Not
yeah,
exactly,
and no one's
words. Yeah.
Catherine, who should be allowed to start a profile on themselves? No one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, these folks want you to sell them for them, be a reseller, but of course that's a federal offense, so we do not recommend it. And again, it passes all alerts, SafeScan, LexisNexis, because it's a valid SSN, but it's a stolen SSN. This website, legalcpn.com, says that it is legal. That's a bold-faced lie. This is a federal offense. So again, to the unwary or to someone whose credit is in the tank, they might give this a try. So they want to change your name, give you those aged business trade lines to artificially inflate your credit score.
And one of the types of companies that commonly do this and commonly are able to get people to pay for these that are, not necessarily those that are interested in becoming fraudsters are credit repair companies.
Okay.
There's a huge problem with credit repair companies using this as a way to make money, and they're essentially turning people into, identity thieves that are using numbers that were not issued to them by the Social Security Administration but issued to someone else, and that causes problems for these people that may be naive and not know what they're getting into. Go start using this number, and the next thing they know, law enforcement is knocking at their door. That's if someone reported it.
Well, so that's the next question. How is this allowed? Is it a gray area because, a CPN is just a 9-digit number? Can law enforcement not find these criminals? Are some of them offshore? What is it, Catherine?
Well, whenever you have someone who has a number that was never tied to them, they may be using a name that's not really their name either. Often that's at an address that isn't really their address. So the credit companies aren't going to find them. Sometimes they think of it as just like a skip account, like someone where something happened and they just ended up disappearing, but it may not actually pass into the lines of, wait a minute, this is fraud. And law enforcement, if they're not getting told that this is happening, if it's not being reported, then how do they know to even look for those criminals?
Good point. Well, here's what we're seeing. CBSV usage continues to increase to stay one step ahead of these fraudsters. So as businesses learn the value of absolute validation, CBSV usage continues to grow through the years. And that's a good thing because we're stopping criminals every day. So let's talk about the simple process. It's a one-page consent form. Here's what it looks like, and I'll expand it so we can get a closer view. This is an Office of Management and Budget document from the feds. It releases name, date of birth, and SSN of the applicant for one purpose. So again, there's many different types of businesses on this call. So maybe it's for pre-employment, or it might be for an auto loan or a mortgage. It could be for anything, maybe a nursing license. Then there's the checkbox. Again, is it for a background check? Is it for a license requirement? Whatever. Your company is names here, name and address of your company. We are your authorized agent to perform this service on your behalf. The feds figure that 3 months is plenty of time to complete a business transaction, so they make this form default to 90 days. But this could be modified by the applicant for any number of days. The only catch, of course, is if the applicant modifies the number of days, just make sure you're within the time frame for the submission. The Social Security Administration, as some of you on this call might know, they're still back in the 1930s. They still require wet signature. We're lobbying hard as one of their largest users, and they know that they would obviously have more usage for the service if they went to an e-signature format. But as we speak, on April 23rd, 2015, the Social Security Administration does not allow any form of electronic, digital, or mouse pen signature. It must be hard copy, wet signed. So once you receive this signed form back, you simply access the portal and input the information of name, SSN, date of birth of the applicant. You upload the document, of course signed and fully complete, submit, and it is an instantaneous result to the master file of the Social Security Administration. So you'll get the consenter's name, when the request began, when the SSA 89 form was received, the date and time of validation, and the result. Again, the results are successful, unsuccessful, or deceased. We also provide you a full-page document if you prefer that type of format. Same information, validation, the applicant, identifiers, and the result. So question number 4 then, how interested is your organization in implementing the superlative governmental verification solution to mitigate fraud and identity theft? I'll put that on for you. So if you'd be so kind, on the right-hand side, click one of the buttons. How interested is your organization in implementing this superlative service? And I'll give you about 5 more seconds to find the correct button. And of course, the answers are as varied as the types of businesses here on the webinar. Some are very interested, some interested, somewhat interested, and a few not at this time. So at this point, we will open it up for questions and answers. There's a box on the right-hand side where you could type your questions, and Catherine will be happy to answer them all for you. Okay, questions, and I'll read them to you. I'm having a little trouble here with the technology.
Technology
There,
can be
now
sometimes.
they're coming in.
Okay.
Here we go. First question. What is the benefit of working with your company over the SSA directly? Any company right now could enroll with the Social Security Administration. There was a one-time non-refundable $5,000 application fee. There's also a vetting period, anywhere up to right now about 5 or 6 months. We were also, as I mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast, the first to integrate with the master file. The Social Security Administration has a published estimate of $200,000 to do that build. It actually took about 11 months and over $360,000. So those are a few monetary reasons. The other monetary reason to avoid doing it yourself is, as stated on the SSA website, you need to pay up front into a non-interest-bearing escrow account. So if, let's say your company was going to do a couple thousand a month, the cost of these from the feds is $3.10 each. So you can see how that's quite a hefty dollar amount that you would pay up front into this non-interest-bearing escrow account as you do your searches throughout the year. Another question. Oh, and by the way, one other thing, the difference between working directly with the feds or coming to a company like us would be you don't have to deal with the bureaucracy of working with the federal agency in this case. We take on all of the paperwork involved, all of the interaction on a monthly basis, and also there's an annual audit that we are mandated to go through where you avoid all that. So we take on all the administrative duties and responsibilities as well. Do you offer this a la carte service versus a subscription service? Yes, this is. This could be standalone. You can use this again because it's consent based. You can use this as needed as a standalone a la carte service. What if I'm contacted by someone to use my credit to bolster their own? Is that illegal? What are the risks? Catherine, I'll give this one to you, and I'll read the question again. What if I'm contacted by someone to use my credit to bolster their own? Is that legal, and what are the risks?
Well, that's a very gray area. Really, the authorized user came about for, like family members. Like if, a wife has a credit line and she wants to add her husband as being able to use that credit line, that's when we are a child being added, a kid that's off at college or something like that. It's never a good idea to do it for someone, that you don't know. I mean, if it's someone that purpose is not to give to people to boost their credit. And that can be problematic, especially if your account is linked to someone who is, performing identity theft, and you added them as an authorized user. That can be very problematic for you, and it's you don't want to end up on that side of the law.
Thank you, Catherine. Here's another question. The integration that you just mentioned is if you are submitting in batch mode, right? No, what we do is because we have direct access to the master file in Baltimore, Maryland, we actually, as you submit the request, it goes into a queue. Then we just, I guess in that way, I guess you could say it's batch. I mean, we send out the request every 5 minutes. So, so as you submit, that's why we say it's an instantaneous result, because on average you're getting the result back within about a minute or two. Then the question goes on to say, but you can also directly through the website without IT integration. So you can access our platform. It's a portal. It's a secure portal. Or we can give you the web service API, and you can actually integrate it into your services. Either way, whatever fits your business model. And again, it is SSA compliant to use the CBSV web service API that we have for you. If you need that, just contact us. Okay, there's a question about pricing. How much do you charge? Is there a per inquiry fee or monthly fee, one-time enrollment fee? We've actually, Catherine, as you know, we've waived the application fee, we've waived the setup fee. We want to make this very easy for businesses to jump in. So we put no barriers as far as no monthly fees, there's no monthly minimums. In fact, there's not even a contract. So if there's a company on this call that wants to just try it, there is an application per SSA regulations. There is a registration form. So the form would be filled out, your company would be vetted and approved. That whole process really only takes about a day. So by this time tomorrow, you can be vetted and approved to use the service. No application or setup fee, no monthly charge, no minimum usage charges. Now, depending on your level of usage, there's a tiered pricing matrix. And what we'll do, Catherine, after this, I'll just send it out to all the attendees of the call so they can see where they might fit on the matrix. Because I'm sure there's some smaller companies that might just do handfuls, but there's some larger companies on this call that will do tens of thousands a month.
Sound good?
Do we need to give you physical consent form, or do you take our word that we have it? Actually, what you do is the applicant signs the consent form, and it's uploaded. Per SSA regulations, we do not need the original physical signed form. We are mandated by the SSA to store it for 7 years electronically. But that physical form, actually, that could be even given to the applicant. They have the right to have a copy of it, or the company, the business can store that per SSA storage requirements, or they could destroy it. Because once we have the uploaded version, that's all that is required from the SSA, per SSA regulations. Other than educating, is there a benefit to law enforcement using CBSV? Other than educating, is there a benefit to law enforcement using CBSV? How might you answer that one, Catherine?
Well, I think it's possible that for law enforcement, if they were to use this service, it would be a way to easily vet through identity theft claims that they received. There are a high number of people that will claim to be the victims of identity theft, and they go to the police and they'll claim to be the victim of identity theft because they want to, that's one common method that people will use to try and remove valid debt from their credit history. And they do go to the extent of going to the police and saying, hey, I've been a victim of identity theft. And so I could see that as being one option that law enforcement could use this for.
Great, thanks. We just have a few more questions left and a few more minutes. Does the results come from the SSA or from your company because you have access to the master file? No, these are actual results from the federal government. These are from the Social Security Administration. Again, they're instantaneous results. How do you know if it is a CPN? If they are blending info, they might just alter their info slightly so it appears they are legitimate. Okay, and that's true. But CBSV would catch any alteration of a name or a date of birth or a slightly modified SSN. Would you? I mean, I think that's what you would say too, right, Catherine?
Yes, I agree. I mean, there's ways that you could look at a credit profile and recognize that there's a high probability that a CPN number is being used, but that's only if that application is kicked by the auto approval system and sent to a credit analyst to review and they see it. Unfortunately, because the way that this has progressed over time, that it is passing LexisNexis and other tools, often these CPNs are not even seen by the credit analyst. And so it is, it is highly recommended to be able to use a tool like this where it goes straight to the source, the Social Security Administration, to be able to kind of vet these and such. So.
And we have one last question. Can you amplify on requirements of the actual consent form? We might have it signed in a regional office. It may take a while to get the form. Can you verify without our having to send you the form right away? Well, as long as it's in that time frame indicated on the form, which again, the default time frame is 90 days. So you'll probably be able to complete the transaction within those 90 days. If not, again, depending on what duration the applicant changes it to. I mean, if they change it to 5 days and you have trouble getting it to us, well, yeah, that would be a violation per SSA regulations. It has to be within the time frame, but no, if you need a little bit of time, that's fine. In other words, if the applicant signs it today, but you don't process it until next week, well, you're certainly within the 90 days, and you're good to go. Not a problem. Well, thank everyone for attending, and Catherine, we want to thank you especially. Your insight is most valuable.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here, and I thank everybody as well for taking the time to join us today.
If they have questions, please, of course, feel free, ladies and gentlemen, to contact either Catherine or myself at the phone numbers or at the email addresses indicated. Thank you again, and we'll see you again next time. Bye now.